What I'm interested in hearing from you as a, hang on, let me get it right, content and user engagement guy, not an editor or a journalist, for heaven's sake. But in that role, I've always wondered, does the commercial real estate industry relate to Donald Trump in any way as a president who is running the country as a real estate guy, right? Like if anybody who was a real estate professional was given that job, would they do it the same way? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, based on the response to the survey, that, you know, because we've done the survey 5 or 6 times since he became president. And I mean, there's two, I think, important caveats about our audience. One is we ask, you know, how do you identify politically, and much more Republican, self-identified Republican than Democrat, and then a healthy dose of people that also identify as independent, but much more heavily Republican than you would find in a general population. And also the industry obviously skews to be, you know, older white men, you know, so given that those are your caveats, the reception to Trump is very interesting, because I think early on in some of the surveys we did, we found it more mixed and even slightly negative. Once the tax reform got done, then pretty consistently he's had higher approval in the industry. So I think, and then so I think, you know, that piece of legislation certainly, I think, both just on the tax policy level, but because it brought with it the opportunity zone legislation, and then some stuff around some other things that are just favorable to investment in general. That's a very important thing to the industry. So I think, like, there's the question of how is Donald Trump a president for the industry versus then what might you think of him personally, or what might you think of some of these other issues that don't touch our industry as much. And I think those are two, what we find in the surveys are those are two separate questions, because we might find that people, even within, you know, industry, even within people that are more Republican, still don't approve 100% of everything he's doing. There's been some trepidation around, we asked, like, this time, you know, whether they approved of how much he's kind of pushed Powell to lower interest rates and whether they agreed with that. And a lot of people, while they like a lower interest rate environment, don't necessarily like the president influencing the Fed. So, you know, we get that in some of the open-ended comments. So I think, but by and large, and I think there's also the other issue that's come up a bunch of times is infrastructure, and the fact that nothing has really happened there, and people saw that as a potential really positive thing that could have happened for the industry, especially since the ways that it had been sketched out originally were more about bringing in the private sector to be part of that process, and that never came to pass.